In a recent piece for the Harvard Crimson, which is a school newspaper but considers itself so much more, graduate student Daniel Hanrahan reproached himself for what is now a sinister crime. He discussed the attractiveness of the opposite sex. Hanrahan says he was out drinking during the orientation for his class last year when his fellow students raised the matter of which girls in their class were, quote, the hottest. With horror, Hanrahan says he failed to object, to declare that calling women pretty is a form of objectification that could lead to assault. Instead, he says, and I'm quoting, I uncrossed my arms, and yes, I discussed which girls were hot. Apparently, Cambridge is no better than a Boko Haram camp. Kathy Rue, founding publisher of Catalina Magazine, she joins us tonight. Kathy, you are our Sherpa, you're our Tenzing Norgay, our spirit guide into the brave new world of progressive America, into the cultural revolution now taking place. I didn't know, so thank you for that. I didn't know that this was a crime now.
Well, I mean, it's objectifying women, so that's always been a crime, to objectify women, not seeing them as intelligent creatures, intelligent people that they are, but to see them at Harvard as just hot, I mean, that's not right.
Well, how about if a woman is intelligent? Not all people are intelligent, by the way. Some are, some aren't. Same with men, right?
Right.
But is it okay to acknowledge that you find someone attractive, or is that, as Mr. Hanrahan suggests, a form of assault?
Well, he felt that it was wrong because they had a group of guys sitting around and they weren't talking about how intelligent and wonderful these women are. They were talking about their physical attributes and that they were ranking them on a scale of 1 to 10 according to how hot they were. And he felt it was wrong. He felt that he was objectifying women, and he felt that he was creating and helping a culture of rape, he said, on the campus of Harvard. So.
But But they weren't raping people, were they? Weren't they just saying which girls they found attractive?
They have a high incidence of rape. They have a high incidence of objectifying women, and 30% of women graduate from Harvard saying that they're victims of sexual assault.
Right, but
so
okay.
it is a problem at Harvard. There is a problem.
I don't know where you got those stats, but I mean, in this specific case, these men weren't planning to go out and assault anybody. Weren't they just saying, like, I find this girl attractive? Do you?
Well, we don't know what these men did.
Right?
We don't know what they did, but we do know that men were behaving badly and are behaving badly at campuses around the country. And now we find out that at Harvard, these guys are speaking inappropriately about women, and that
saying which ones they find attractive. So is this a transferable crime? I mean, if a bunch of women are sitting around and they say, you know, I think that guy is kind of attractive, or I think he's hot, or whatever.
Women are not the ones. They're not the ones committing the rapes.
So they're allowed to say that?
Well, women aren't harming anyone. So sure, if women aren't harming anyone, that there is no problem that women do this. But if men are actually harming women, which we know they are, then yeah, that is a problem.
So because some men harm, I'm just trying to get the standards here, as I always do when you come on. Just trying to figure out the new rules.
All right, sorry.
America's, very different from what it was last week. So because some men harm women, no men are allowed to say they find any woman attractive, but because no women harm men, all women are allowed to say they find men attractive. Is that the rule?
It's very rare for men to be objectified and go through experiences like sexual assault. That's just a fact.
But am I right? Is that the rule? Look, the rest of us are looking on, especially those of us over 40, looking on in horror. We see the country changing. We have no idea who makes these rules.
It's changing for the better.
Maybe so, but changing, and change is hard. And whoever makes these rules, like, no one gets a heads up about what the new rules are. They just kind of appear, and then you're held to account on the basis of those rules. So I'm just trying to get from you an accounting of what the rules are so I don't break them.
Well, the rules are, society is dictating the rules right now, not the law, but society is dictating the rules, and society is saying that men can't get away with this kind of human behavior anymore.
Who's society?
It's unacceptable.
But who's in charge? Is there like a basement room somewhere where a bunch of people who are somehow in charge
Women are speaking up. There's a movement going on. We have the Me Too, #MeToo movement that's going on. So women are speaking up, and we're holding men to a higher standard. We're letting them know that they can't get away with this anymore.
Can't get away. But I wonder, look, by the way, just to be totally clear, as always, I couldn't be more opposed to assaulting or hurting women.
Right.
I have, 4 in my own house who I love more than anything.
I know.
So, of course.
It's not you.
But I wonder if you've thought this through. I mean, so if it's now a crime to think or say that a woman's attractive, do you feel like maybe you or women in general might lose something in a society where men were too afraid to say they thought you were attractive?
It's not right to objectify a woman. It's not right to see a woman only as an attractive human being.
Okay,
these guys at Harvard were not sitting around.
What if you say, I respect you in many ways, but I also find you attractive?
But that's not what this op-ed writer said. He said he felt wrong. He wanted to speak up, and instead he helped these guys treat these women like they were lesser.
Let me just drop all the pretense and ask you a totally honest question, man to woman.
What?
You have a little bit of contempt for this guy, don't you? Here he is. He didn't do anything wrong. He didn't assault anybody. He's filled with self-hatred because he said he thought a woman was attractive. You can't respect a man like that. I mean, let's be honest.
He didn't say that he found a woman attractive. He was sitting around drunk with a bunch of guys who we don't know what they did the next day, and they were saying that women were hot on a scale of 1 to 10.
Ooh,
so,
women were hot. Whoa. All right.
We don't know what they did.
Yeah, call the police. Kathy, thank you.
Thank you.
So instructive. Nancy Pelosi has overseen some of the biggest losses in the history of the Democratic Party in the last 11 years since she became Speaker of the House. Some Democrats have had enough. They're suggesting maybe it's time for a leadership change, but they should have known better. Criticizing Nancy Pelosi is sexist. Watch this.
I've heard that argument used so many times before, and I think it really reflects the sexism that still exists in politics today. I think Nancy Pelosi is held to a different standard than others are. The vilification of her in a very sexist way, quite frankly, is what's led to this discussion.
It's so good. Well, journalist and author Kathy Rue joins us tonight. Kathy, thanks a lot for coming on. So this is, I love this tape. I've watched it like 19 times. I mean, this really is a pile-up at the four-way intersection of identity politics here. So
really?
What that clip does not reveal is that one of the people who called for Nancy Pelosi to maybe step aside at the age of 77 is Linda Sanchez of California, who's, of course, a female Latina Democrat.
Right.
So here you have some guy telling a woman that she's a sexist for criticizing Nancy Pelosi. I'm losing track of who's got privilege here. How does this work?
Right. Well, I mean, we're not saying Linda Sanchez isn't necessarily right because she's a Latina woman for saying
I
that.
agree.
I mean,
right.
Yes, and maybe others are sexist when it comes to Nancy Pelosi. So I do believe that. I think he is correct there. I don't think Linda Sanchez necessarily was sexist by saying what she said. Maybe jealous. I mean, Nancy Pelosi is a pioneer. She's a powerful woman. Who knows? Maybe she's a little jealous.
Well, I mean, look, I'm not the kind of guy who traffics in epithets like sexist. But it's conforming a bit to a stereotype for you, don't you think, with respect, to suggest that Linda Sanchez is jealous? Like one woman looks upon another woman's success and is jealous? I mean, that's kind of a gender stereotype,
no, it just doesn't make sense. Nancy Pelosi is not a liability. Her caucus supports her. Why would she be there? She would not be there if she were a liability. So Linda Sanchez's comments make no sense whatsoever. So I can't imagine.
Look, it's not my fight. I'm not a fight, but here, I mean, I'm not a Democrat, so have fun. But here are the numbers, and maybe this is part of the reason. So after the 2006 election, it was midway through Bush's second term, Democrats retook the House. Pelosi became Speaker. That year, they had 233 seats in the House of Representatives. A lot has happened since Donald Trump got elected, and now Democrats have 194 seats in the House. That's a massive and historic loss. Meanwhile, Democrats have lost over 1,000 seats across the country with Pelosi as the most visible leader of their party. So maybe just by the numbers that suggest abject failure.
But the numbers also do show that politics can be quite sexist. We have this nation has 51% women, yet we're 20% of Congress, 20% in the House, 20% in the Senate. So and now we have 23 cabinet members. We have 4 that are women, less than ever, half than we had with President Obama. So the numbers are showing that women are not necessarily making huge strides in Washington, D.C. This is not a great time to be a woman in D.C.
Yeah.
In D.C.
Luckily, electoral success is not the only measure of success, thank God. But and I'm sure it's a very complicated thing. I mean, there are a lot of reasons for what you just described.
Right, but
to
D.C.
ascribe
is
it, the whole thing
filled right now. There's no denying that.
I don't even know what that means. That's not how it feels to me, actually. But whatever. Leaving like generalizations like that aside, Donald Trump got the majority of married women to vote for him. Were they sexist for voting for Donald Trump over a feminist?
Well, 3 million people voted for Hillary Clinton, more voted for Hillary Clinton than Donald Trump. So she did get more voters.
No, but I'm just talking about the sexism. I mean, I want to relitigate the whole election, but just just to address the question of sexism. So here you have a candidate, Donald Trump, widely denounced as a sexist by Democrats and many Republicans too, and yet he wins the majority of married women, actual women, over the female candidate, the pro-woman candidate.
And now we're
what
seeing
does that tell
the
you?
things that he does have been so sexist. The things that he's done while he's been in office have been horrible for women. And he hasn't put women in powerful positions. He hasn't been good to women.
Why did they? But why would they vote for him? It's a little confusing. Like,
well,
why would the majority of married
change, and now he's just bringing disappointment? So they made a mistake.
Right. But I guess the only point I'm making, and I don't want to debate the Trump legacy or the last election, but when you hear people write off pretty complicated phenomena like the election or Nancy Pelosi's 11 years leading her party in the House as just sexism, will you concede perhaps it's kind of a simplistic explanation for what's actually going on?
It is, but she did have a moment where men were speaking above her, and she did point out that no one was paying attention to her. It was a moment where she was the only woman in the room, and the Washington Post pointed out that that was a sexist moment in D.C. So maybe he was referring to those moments that she has experienced. There's a lot of sexism in D.C. and in politics, in American politics. It's alive and well.
General, but may I just ask you one last final question?
Yeah.
Nancy Pelosi is, the most powerful female leader in Washington. She's also one of the great, but she's also one of the richest people in Washington, one of the richest people in the country.
Right.
So how rich and how powerful can you get until you're not really allowed to complain about being a victim anymore, if you see what I'm saying?
Well, when men
at what point does it become kind of ludicrous?
When she can talk and be heard like her counterparts, like her male counterparts, then she could say that. But if she's not treated equally, she could keep complaining, as far as I'm concerned.
So, so it doesn't matter how rich and how powerful she is. She can still call herself a victim, and you'll still believe her.
If she still is a victim, absolutely. A victim has a right to speak up, no matter how much money that person makes. Absolutely.
Hilarious. Okay, thank you, Kathy. Thanks for coming on.